Welcome to r/RedditRevenge. This is a story of someone getting back at someone with revenge after being wronged. And today we have 3 great stories, so subscribe, hit the like button, and let's begin. The first story, coworker was fired after situation with police. The second story, firm administrator hires outside company for all IT, fires internal IT. We take what info we learned over the years while there and delete it. The third story, I didn't hire a former coworker in my company. Today's first story is, not my fault you can't be bothered to do your job. To be honest, I never thought this would go as far as it did, and I probably wouldn't have done it if I had known what would have happened. Oh well though, it was effing awesome. So, I used to work at an entertainment park when I was 17. It was minimum wage, 0-hour contract, and only seasonal. But I lived in a severely deprived area, with very high levels of underemployment, so I was thrilled to have a job at all. Specifically, I worked in the soft play center, which was also attached to other activities around the park, such as the bouncy castle, face paint station, and the people who walk around with those enormous bundles of overpriced balloons. Despite it being a kick in the throat that selling one balloon would pay for my hour's wage, it was my favorite job and I was good at it. You got to wander around the park, talk to customers, and in general it was just more pleasant than being stuck in a smelly child's play area with their bratty parents. Since I regularly topped sales in this department, I was always written in to sell balloons on any day where the weather allowed it. I was living the life. There was this woman, I'll call her Kay, who really didn't like this. She had always liked being on balloons, but after becoming pregnant, they decided it would be best for her to just stay within the soft play area. She would use her pregnancy to try and get away with everything. If you needed to get past her and she refused to move, the second you tried to get past her, at the slightest nudge, she was being barged into, which would damage the baby, and she refused to do parties because they were too stressful. Her parents were very wealthy, one of the reasons I don't feel so guilty for what I did, and would pay to come in to see her. She would then use that as a way to get out of doing anything for an hour or more whilst they chatted. A few weeks into the season, our manager injured himself and was unable to come back into work. As a result, a manager from a separate department was put in charge, and he wasn't aware of Kay's ban of balloons. One day I was in the back room filling up balloons with helium and tying them off. It's annoying since you have to keep a hold of them all, and it takes a lot of fiddling. Eventually, I'd prepared maybe 50 balloons and was getting ready to head out into the park. I knew that it wasn't very busy, so that bundle would probably last me the day, and I would be able to have a nice calm day. Unfortunately, however, before I got to the exit, I was swiftly overtaken by Kay, who ripped the balloons from my hands and ordered me back into the kitchen. I was left stunned and could only trundle back to the soft play area's kitchen, where I was swiftly put to work doing pots. This continued for the next 3 weeks, and I was sick of it. Then it started getting busier. Instead of what lot of balloons lasting a day, they had to be replenished when stocks ran low. I noticed the Kay would never come in to get any more balloons, which seemed odd to me. I brought it up to the substitute manager, who also became concerned. It turns out that she didn't actually like blowing up the balloons, so once she had sold out, she would just spend the rest of her shift walking around and enjoying the sunshine. She was ordered that the moment she got down to 2 or 3 balloons, she had to come in and get more. I think the only reason she wasn't fired was because she was pregnant. The day after this happened, she burst into the kitchen about midday and told me to take over balloons before going on her lunch. I gladly agreed, glad to get out of the soft play area, and began to fill up the balloons and tie them off. It was really frustrating and took about 40 minutes, but eventually I was finished and stood back to admire my work. Almost immediately after I'd tied off the bunch, waltzed in and to the balloons, shooing me back to the kitchen. I frowned and told her that she had told me that I would be taking over balloons. She laughed and said that she had just decided she wanted to do it again. It clicked right away that all she wanted was for someone to fill up the balloons for her, while she goofed off for a bit. I stormed back into the kitchen, completely peeved off. The manager imminently called me over and asked me where I'd been for the last 40 minutes. I told him I'd been in the back filling up balloons for Kay, which he didn't like, as it meant Kay had been skipping work again. He radioed her to ask if this was true. She of course denied it, and I lost an hour's pay. I was furious with her. I had spent the last few weeks cooped up in a grimy, disgusting kitchen, being yelled at by entitled parents and idiotic kids, while she got to do my job without any of the hard bits. That night I went home seething, and covered head to toe in ketchup that a 5-year-old had squirted all over my one company shirt. They were very stingy. Now comes the good bit. The next day she went out on balloons as usual, having got a member of the early morning staff to fill up some balloons for her, and left me in the kitchen. I was ridiculously busy and very hot. I would have given anything to be outdoors on a day like this. Once again at midday, she came in to ask me to take over from balloons, somehow thinking I was dumb enough to make this mistake twice. I had, however, concocted a plan and went to do so. When I was first being trained, I had been told numerous times to only fill up the balloons as little as possible, since the gas could expand if it was hope, and they would pop. Since she had treated me like SH and I knew she wouldn't check, I decided to overfill each balloon, just so it was on the verge of full capacity. When she predictably came back and took them off me, I waved her off with a smile. I figured all that would happen was maybe one would pop and give her a fright. Maybe if I was lucky, one of the guests would complain, and I'd get my favorite job back. Oh, how much better it was. A few hours later, we got a call through the park to evacuate. Everyone was ushered out and multiple SWAT teams poured into the park. The country was currently on high terrorist alert, and given that this was a high-risk area, everyone was pretty on edge. All the customers were sent home, and we were glad to hear that there had been no casualties, and no damage had been done at all. It was just a false alarm. Since we had to refund all the customers, and the park was cleared for the next few days, the economic impact of this event had been around £300,000, so quite a lot. After an investigation, it turned out that one of Kay's balloons had popped in the heat, causing those around it to pop. These were those enormous foil balloons, and they made quite a noise when they burst. Several members of the public had panicked and called the police, telling them that there had been a bombing. Kay was confronted and asked why she allowed the balloons to be so overfilled. She tried to tell the managers and police that it was me who had filled them up, but since she had changed her name on the shift planner so that it was she on balloons, she couldn't wriggle her way out of it. From what I know, she was promptly fired and charged a significant fine by the police. Kay was not fined because the police were called. She was fined because she gave statements that went against evidence provided by the park and refused to cooperate, as under the circumstances, it was not her that actually called the police. I knew her parents would be able to support her financially, so it didn't bother me that much that I had gotten her fired. She deserved it, really. A few days later, I went back to selling balloons, and my sanity made a dramatic comeback. I never meant for it to happen, but I couldn't have been happier with the result. The next story is getting rid of the IT department. This happened just about 1 year ago. I worked for a mid-sized law firm as the IT manager. We were a small group, myself, the IT director, a help desk guy, and a system admin. We all put in many hours over and above the normal 40-hour work week we were paid, but we never complained. One week we were hit with ransomware and ended up working over 55 hours straight. We were all on call 24/7, and not a week went by that we didn't get a call on the weekend from the firm administrator. She would call on the weekend asking for someone to drive to one of our remote offices and set up a monitor at 8 p.m. on a Sunday. Again, we gritted our teeth, bit our tongues, and went along with it. Never a single complaint. One afternoon, the IT director came to my office to talk about bringing in a company to assist with some security issues we had found during the ransomware attack. Since it was such a difficult time, I agreed. The company came in and immediately began talking about taking over all the IT functions. We pumped the brakes and told them we were only interested in the security side. The security company requested a private meeting with the firm administrator. Fast forward 2 months, and the security company now has half our servers on their cloud network, and will be taking all the servers to their network in the next couple of months. We began having real issues with the network, servers becoming unreachable, software not working properly, etc. The firm administrator blamed us, the local IT group. We took the flak for the security company's screw-up. After a while, my IT director had enough and turned in her resignation. I was in line for her position and had been doing most of her work for her anyway, so the day came when they would announce the new IT director position. I was called into the firm admin's office. She sat me down and told me the firm would be going a different direction, and they were going to be going with an outside company to handle all their IT issues moving forward. I was told they would be firing my 2 employees immediately, but asked me to stay on for 2 weeks to help the transition, i.e. train the new company on how to do my job. Apparently, a totally different company swooped in and sold her on their company. Basically, all the internal IT and the security company were let go. I agreed to stay on for the 2 weeks. After the meeting, I watched as the firm admin and security walked out of my team. I immediately went to our internal wiki, help documents, that I set up, and removed every single document that myself or my team put on there. We had a new software installed a few weeks prior, and I was the only one that knew how to service it and how it was set up. The instructions were in the wiki. There was also a new office being set up the following Monday. I had been working every day for a month to get everything in line for it, including setting up all the PCs with specialized software. I removed the password entries in our password manager for those PCs. I then cleaned out my desk, handed my desk plans to some friends, said goodbye and left, without telling the firm administrator. The next morning around 9 a.m., I sent my resignation to the firm administrator. She was left completely empty-handed, as the new company was set to train with me that day, and were not ready to take over full control. The firm admin called me, begging me to come back, and said she would bring me on as the IT director, where I could oversee the outside company. I politely declined. She called the old IT director and both my employees asking for one of us to come in and help. We all declined. I get phone calls from time to time from employees that are still there that say the network's always down, user accounts are frequently deleted without any reason given, and that the new office has just been set up, nearly a year later. As for the software that only I knew about, they've hired 2 people to manage it, and from what I'm told, it's frequently down and rarely works right. Moral of the story, employers, treat your IT department with respect. If you don't need them, they're doing a great job, and the grass is rarely ever greener. And the last story is, SH Talk me? Okay, I won't hire you. So I worked at a company that had serious problems with appropriate authority. In our office, the office manager would routinely say terrible things about the company, encourage the techs to quit and leave, etc. When I was hired, she was looking for another job and was letting the techs do whatever they wanted. I was hired as a supervisor and discovered several ethical violations, and the quality of work from the techs was extremely poor. We had one tech who was just flat out nasty. She was bigger and tried to physically intimidate another supervisor, who was very short, by standing up over her and getting into her personal space because the supervisor called her out on trying to punish someone else. Basically, they all got peeved because they were allowed for who knows how long to do whatever they wanted, and when I showed up and said you have to do your jobs, they didn't like me. So one day, the next level supervisor decides that we have to fill out a rubric on how well the techs are doing their jobs. Of course, I get stuck with the nasty B. I do my job, fill it out, give it to her to sign. She signs it but acts like I took a giant SH in her cereal. Definitely a how dare you tell me how to do my job sort of situation. She begins saying really nasty things about me to corporate, saying I'm terrible and mean to her, saying I'm not providing enough supervision. Never mind, she was constantly canceling, so I would show up and she wouldn't be there. Change schedules with clients, which she didn't have the authority to do. I got her in trouble for that before I left. She was a loudmouth to someone who didn't like her, told me all about how she was SH talking me. Tired of all the BS, I just said F it. I quit and started my own company. I've been very happy since. Cue revenge. A year later, I'm hiring for my company, as I'm expanding, and guess who applies to work for me? Yup, Nasty B. I can't tell you how much pleasure I got out of declining her application and clicking that she was unqualified to apply. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications if you enjoyed the video. Have a good day!